Here's your shot at winning $1,000. Text the national keyword change right now to 95819. That's CHANG to 95819. We'll text you back to confirm your entry. Data and messaging rates may apply. Please don't text and drive. It's $5K a day on WMAL. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
7:07 on O'Connor and Company on this busy Wednesday morning. It'll be very interesting to see how the media and how the politicians in town start navigating through what is a 7-hour-old government shutdown, such as it is, and how the Trump administration flexes their constitutional muscle, because the Congress, the Democrats in particular, have just handed a whole lot of power over to Donald Trump and Russ Vought, the director of OMB. Let's see how they use it. Coming up in 30 minutes, Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer on yesterday's speech from Hegseth and Trump to our generals and admirals. 8:05, Leland Vittert will join us. He's got a brand new book about being an adult on the autism spectrum with an incredibly impressive job and impressive performance. What did his dad do to help him achieve what he's achieved? It's a great story. 8:35, Susan Ferriccio, Washington Times, on the government shutdown. And Julie Gunlock, of course, veteran of many government shutdowns, is with us all morning. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
Let's turn our sights to Maryland for a moment. Fox 45 in Baltimore. Chris Papst does some great investigative reporting for for that station. Your unit is called Project Baltimore. Is that right, Chris? Chris?
Yes.
Oh, we got you. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. So we've been watching your by the way, I want to point out, Chris has a great book. It's called Failure Factory, How Baltimore City Public Schools Deprive Taxpayers and Students of a Future. And it is one of the greatest scandals of the state of Maryland that the children in Baltimore are just sort of written off, never given an opportunity after decades of failure. But this latest scandal that you found having to do with students who were just unaccounted for, how does this happen exactly? And maybe start at the beginning and describe exactly what we're talking about here.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me on. So the purpose of Failure Factory, I've been investigating Baltimore City schools for Fox 45 News. I'm on a team called Project Baltimore. And the purpose of Failure Factory was because I've been investigating the school systems for 8 years. And what I've learned is that there is so much money now that is involved in public education that public education has become in many ways more about acquiring the money than it is about actually educating the students. There's more of an emphasis on funding than kids. And that leads into what we just broke, which is a story about students who cannot be found. So the way that Maryland operates is that schools get money based on the number of students that are enrolled. But it's only on one day a year, and a lot of people don't realize this. Enrollment in Maryland public schools is only taken one day a year, and that's September 30th. The number of students that you have enrolled on that one day determines all of your funding. So what we have seen is that over the past 5 or 6 years, there's been a growing number of students who are enrolled on that September 30th day, but then later on during the school year, they go missing. They can't find them, and they're called whereabouts unknown. That is what the designation is through the state. So what we have found was that just in 2024, just in 1 year, Maryland taxpayers paid $168 million to schools. They gave the money to schools to educate kids who cannot be found. So in Failure Factory, in my book, I go back over years and I talk about why this is happening. And it's happening because the schools want the money. And this is a very simple problem to fix. Instead of counting enrollment on one day of year, you count it maybe 2 days a year, once in September, once in February. There have been bills that have been introduced in Annapolis to count enrollment 4 times a year to get a more accurate enrollment count, so the money is actually going to educate the students and not going to an empty seat where the schools just keep the money. But there's no appetite in Maryland to pass a bill like that, because what it would do, and we know this, is that it would reduce the school's funding because their enrollment would go down. And that's not what schools want. They don't want less money. They want more money.
Well, the other thing is you're talking about millions and millions of dollars going into these school districts for students that are not or not showing up. But then you look at the state of the schools. I mean, kids are not being educated in Baltimore schools. I have another question though about enrollment. I feel like sometimes I look at things and I'm too old. I think back to the 70s, how things were done, right? How does enrollment work? Is this an automatic enrollment? Does a parent have to show up to the school to enroll their kids? How exactly does this work? Because why is it so easy that these kids disappear or really never show up?
Because there's no incentive to keep the kid in the school. Once you hit on September 30th, and once you have that enrollment for that kid, if that kid does not show up again the rest of the year, that school gets the money. And in Maryland, it's about between $20,000 and $21,000 per student is, how much money the schools get. So for every student that these schools can enroll, they get between $20,000 and $21,000. And all the kid has to do is show up one day prior to September 30th. If that kid shows up anywhere between September 1st and September 30th, they count them for enrollment on that one day, September 30th. And then the schools get the money. And you mentioned about the lack of education the kids are getting. So last year in Baltimore City schools, that school system had a $1.7 billion budget. 10% of the kids were proficient in math. 10%. So 90% of the students in a school are not proficient in math with a $1.7 billion budget. How is that possible?
Right.
It's possible because the schools are focused on getting the money and not educating the students.
And by the way, that $21,000 or so dollar amount that Maryland claims they spend per student, since a significant percentage is only showing up for that one day and then they are never seen of or heard of again, the actual dollar amount per pupil attending class is much higher, which basically highlights how futile their efforts are, how incompetent they are at educating these children, because they actually have a lot more money to work with on a per kid basis if in fact you reduce the challenge of educating a child just to the dollar amount. If anything, it exposes that it's really not about the money. It appears it's about how you educate kids, the approach you take to educate the kids.
Well, that's why I wrote Failure Factory, because you look at what is happening, and it to your point, if you're a principal, okay, and principals in Baltimore City make a lot of money. They make around $160,000, $170,000 a year, and there are schools that I highlight in the book that do not have a single student proficient in anything, math or English, and that principal's making $160,000 a year. On the flip side of that, you have schools that are very successful, and those principals are also making the same amount of money. There isn't an incentive built into our education system for success. It's just not there. The incentive is to get the money, because once you get the money, it doesn't matter if your kid graduates or doesn't graduate, if your students are proficient or not. You have the money, you keep the money, and you spend the money.
Amazing. Chris Papst from Fox 45. Real fast, one quick question here. It seems to me these kids enroll on September 30th, that magic day. The funding goes, and the school makes all of the money, or the district makes the money from the state and from the feds. At that point, these kids, as you said, they're whereabouts unknown. Is that what they're referred to as?
Yes, correct.
So it seems to me either this is just rampant fraud and those kids didn't really exist, or they were just, purposely brought in to run the numbers up and then, go off on their merry way. Or we might have children who are in danger here, who are unsafe because they've slipped through the cracks. I mean, has there been any response from the Maryland state educators here who are responsible for this to say, yeah, we're trying to get to the bottom of this. We worry about these children. They could be, human trafficked. They may get caught up in drugs. They may be, victims of crime. I mean, is there any concern here, or are they just cashing the checks?
Yesterday, I did speak with the Maryland State Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Carrie Wright, and the State Board of Education President, Dr. Joshua Michael. And they both express grave concern over this for the purposes of what you just said. We don't know where these students are. They're missing. But yet the schools are getting a lot of money, $168 million, to educate students who aren't there. Now, those two, the two leaders of the school system, of the state school system, they're very concerned about this. And clearly they should be. They can't go on camera and say they're not concerned. But
Right.
What you need is that you need the principals of the schools. You need the assistant principals of the schools to go out there, find these kids. Where are they? Are they in danger? Why aren't they in school? Why aren't they getting an education? And that goes back to what we just spoke about. Those principals are going to make the same amount of money every 2 weeks, and they're going to know exactly what their pay raises are for the next 10 or 15 years because of the union, and there just simply isn't the incentive. I'm not saying the principals don't care, but we're humans. We're incentivized by everything that we do. If we're hungry, we go eat. We have an incentive, and we have to go figure out, how to fulfill that. And in this particular situation, the way the public education systems are set up, there's just simply no incentive, and that's the whole point of failure factor. And I really appreciate you guys bringing that up, because I think that people need to know what is going on in our public school system.
Yeah, and by the way, it's something that Wes Moore is running for re-election on, proudly proclaiming that he's been this great education governor, and this is an absolute nightmare and a scandal at the highest level.
Can I say one thing about that? We got 10 more seconds. So whenever you look at a politician like Governor Moore, what do they always say? They always say, we have funded more for education than any previous administration. This budget puts more money into education than any other budget. They never talk about the success. They only talk about the money, because there isn't success. There isn't success. It's just about money and getting money to those schools.
Chris Papst, great work. Keep up the great work, and let us know next development you have on this or any other stuff you're working on here. We're down in D.C. I know we're not Baltimore, but huge Maryland audience, and we care deeply about this. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
It's 7:19. Went a little over. I apologize to everyone involved, but here is Jamie Whitten with your Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Report.
All right, and let's do this. Coming out of Baltimore toward D.C. on southbound 95, we're bunched up now between Route 100 and 175. That's where we have a new incident reported up ahead at the exit for Route 32. That crashes on the exit ramp. The ramp is open, but that's where we have some of that activity. Oh, no, it's like deja vu. Beltway again on the American Legion Bridge. 2 left lanes of 4 blocked with the crash. 2 fire trucks are there. We are now at a crawl off of the 270 spur and out of Bethesda. Now from GarageDoorRepair.com, the WMAL Stormwatch 7 forecast.
A little cloudy today, but that'll burn off and become mostly sunny with the rest of the day. High of 72 degrees tonight. Clear skies overnight, low 50. Even colder, down in the 40s in the outerline suburbs and rural areas. Tomorrow will be sunny with a high of 70. Friday, sunny with a high of 72. Right now, it's 64 degrees at 7:20.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Joy Reid is still in the news, sort of. I mean, she got fired from MSNBC. She's desperately trying to build an audience on podcasts, Substack, YouTube, what have you. And she was part of a conversation about the dangers of the Trump administration. You know how bad things are here with the Trump administration. It is. You remember how John Edwards used to talk about how we have 2 Americas, but it was always, that was class and race
John
and
Edwards,
economics.
boy.
We do have 2 Americas, but I do feel politically we've got 2 very different views on what's going on in this country right now.
Yeah.
And most people looking at abject success over the course of the last several months as the Trump administration implements their policies. Well, here's how Joy Reid sees it, and this is her big warning. She says to liberals in America, do you not understand what these people want in this country? The kind of dystopian nightmare they will create? Here, take a listen.
is that if you go back before the 20th century, there were no income taxes, there were no regulations on business. You could earn as much money as you want, leave 100% of it to your children with no taxes. Right. That's the world they want back. And to get it back, they need society to change. They need people to be less modern.
I think that's enough. Don't threaten me with a good time.
Good time.
I mean, seriously, they should clip that right there for an ad. Winsome Earl Sears should play that and say, "I'm Winsome Sears and I approve this message."
Yes. I mean, she literally was – it's so funny. Larry, I actually saw that. I heard it, and I didn't know it was Joy Reid.
Yeah.
And I was like scrolling. I didn't realize, and I thought, oh, who's saying this is a great idea. And then I realized she was saying it as a negative.
That's right.
Like once I realized it was Joy Reid, I was like, oh my gosh, she's actually saying these things as a negative. It's crazy.
Let me warn you what's going to happen if the conservatives continue to hold power. We're going to have no income taxes. You're going to be able to make as much money as you want. You're going to be able to leave all of it to your children without the government taking any of it. What the hell are we going to do here, people?
You know that guy, FICA? Not going to take anything anymore.
But this is what I mean by two Americans. Here's the thing. You have to be so educated as to have some kind of advanced degree, maybe even a PhD, to be stupid enough to think that that is a bad thing. To think that that's something people should be scared of. You know, you let them have their way, you're going to be able to make as much money as you want and leave it all to your children.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine? Dogs living with cats? Anarchy!
You know what? Again, I love Joy Reid. I want her out there every single day, even if nobody's watching. We're watching Joy. It's 7:23.
Making sense of your world.
Talk radio is where I get all of my information.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL. Making sense of the news.
Coming up, we'll talk to Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer about Pete Hegseth's Secretary of War's speech yesterday. Keep it here. It's 7:30.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. WMAL. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
7:37 here on O'Connor and Company. That means the government has been shut down for 7 hours and 37 minutes. We'll keep you updated as the morning goes on. By the way, Julie Gunlock and I predicted earlier in the show this is not going to I don't think it's going to last through the weekend. Democrats are on the bad side of this. I've got a clue here that it's definitely going to be finished pretty soon here, Julie, because Democrats have already planned a Napa retreat, a 2-day getaway, October 13th at the 5-star Hotel Yountville, with an evening wine tour and dinner at the Stoglin family's Vineyards Wine Caves. So,
good God,
you know,
they're so predictable.
Before they have their little Napa retreat, I wonder if Gavin Newsom will be joining them.
Probably. He does
from
love
French
Napa.
Laundry. You know they're going to want to tidy this up before they go and spend all of that money at that little retreat. So don't
That's
worry,
right.
everybody. It'll be taken care of soon. Joining us right now is friend of the program, Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer, U.S. Army Reserve Lieutenant Colonel, retired CIA-trained intelligence officer, and his book, of course, Operation Dark Heart. They're still talking about that book in this town. Tony, thanks for joining us.
Oh, yeah. Yes, they are. There's going to be more of that soon. So good morning,
good.
Julie and Larry.
Listen, all your friends from the Pentagon, you know, all the flag officers, all those big 3-4-star generals, admirals, they all were summoned to Quantico, and Secretary of War Hegseth and Commander-in-Chief Trump addressed them eye to eye. First of all, just in terms of the saying, because a lot of people say, you could have done this through a Zoom meeting. You could have done this on FaceTime. You could have sent a memo. Why was it important, from your perspective, to have all those generals and admirals in that room at one time?
Because you had to get them off their seats so their fat-spreading ass didn't take up the entire room, just saying. So
that's one way to put it.
That's it. I mean, look, come on. You need to get these people up. And Larry, you and I, we're friends, and I've probably told you stories about the old days where they started doing this written PT test. Basically, the written PT test, which a lot of those flag officers, generals, and admirals subscribe to, basically is you get the form that records the number of pull-ups, push-ups, and your run time, and you just pencil everything in. It's called the written test, Larry. Why do the actual physical fitness stuff? You could just write it in. So that's what's been going on.
I just want you to know I could probably pass that test. In fact, I'm supposed to run the Marine Corps Marathon at the end of the month. I might just fill out a form that said I did.
Then go have drinks. Go have drinks.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's all done. That's all going away, and rightfully so. Our job is to stop being a social petri dish. And Larry, as much as I think some of these guys, like Mark Melly, like running around in the high heels, I don't think that intimidates the enemy. Just say it.
Yeah.
So just there you go.
You know, Tony, the reaction to it was as if Hegseth was talking to a bunch of 14-year-old girls. Don't fat shame them. Don't fat shame them. You know, it really is important that we not fat shame 14-year-old girls, but these are military leaders.
Oh, yeah.
What is, I mean, is that part of the softness of the, of sort of the reforms that were made over the last couple decades of not requiring physical fitness? Is it just that sort of they were influenced by the media or this narrative that we have to be nice to everybody? I don't understand where this comes from.
It came from both sides. Democrats, Republicans both have allowed for the past 30 years, essentially, late 90s, early 2000s, and to today, to start basically lowering everything down because it makes people feel better. Let's not intrude on people having a hard time. Someone who's very close to me talked to me last night after some other interviews and just pointed out that everybody who got recruited it's all about them. It's not about what they can give the country. It's all about, it's 4:30. I got to get to the daycare so I can get my child, and I'm going to be pregnant, so I don't have to go on the next appointment. And it's just not about women. Men do this too. I'm not calling out one side or the other. I'm just saying that the focus has become about how can the individual benefit from service rather than how can they, like JFK, say, what can you do for your country? That focus went away, and it's all a very progressive point of view that has been ended.
Meanwhile, Tony Shaffer, while these standards are now being raised or at the very least enforced, the recruitment numbers are sky high. The retention numbers are sky high. When you actually set a bar and expect and demand the young men and women in the military to meet or exceed those bars, they actually rise to the occasion and say, count me in, I want to be a part of that.
Yeah. So those experts, the military experts over at The View commented on this yesterday. Did you hear this? They talked about these being retro standards. While considering they're vintage idiots, I think it all fits. So let me make this point real quick. Look, right after we're done here, I'm going to go out to my garage and do 20 pull-ups. And if I can do it at 63, you can have these people who are way younger than me establish a standard and stick to it, period. Yeah. There's no excuse not to do it. There's a lot of things going on. People have challenges in their lives. But again, if you have the priority to become mentally fit, physically and basically able to do all the things you have to do, that's what you should do, and there should be no question about it. I can't believe this is a question of people getting upset about this whole thing. And they were talking about hazing. No, it's not hazing. It's challenging people, to Larry's point, that people want to be challenged. They want to grow. They want to be given things which make them have to work for it, not be given things because of their skin color or who they sleep with. They want to be given things because they earn them, and that's what should be the standard.
Hey, Tony, real fast, if you don't mind, of those flag officers in that room, and there are a lot of them, I think I'm shocked when I find out how many of our senior officers have stars on their shoulders. It is a lot
of hot air in that room,
It's amazing. How many of them are actually actively operating contrary to the Commander-in-Chief's direct orders and directions for the Pentagon?
Excellent. So, without telling too much out of school here, Larry, I think Pete Hegseth and company have kind of started figuring out, because he said it yesterday during the speech, they're trying to figure out who kind of went along with DEI because they had to survive, or those who were enthusiastically implementing it. The answer to your question is it's being worked. That's about all I can say about it at this point. But I think you're going to start seeing things. Yesterday was them being shown the door. It's like, hey, if you're a DEI guy and you don't feel comfortable here being told to your face that you suck, you can get up right now and resign. So this is the one good chance for them to leave. If they don't leave now, they're going to be fired. And I think that's what's coming next.
And of course, the way Joe Scarborough is going to report on it is this is Trump changing the military and creating it in his own image so that they're his personal fighting force, and you have to pledge loyalty to MAGA or else you're out of the Army or out of the Navy. How would you respond to Joe Scarborough if you were having a coffee with him?
Well, first off, they said specifically they want the military, like I was, apolitical. You just go out and do your job. Secondly, they're reestablishing the standard of reasonable risk. During World War II, Eisenhower, Nimitz, all the other great leaders put in the mind of their subordinates the idea of taking reasonable risks to achieve specific objectives. That's back. That was taken out. All the risky things you've heard me tell you stories about, all the things in my book, Dark Heart, all those risky things, which actually did work. I didn't get anybody killed, just saying, but I took risk. All the risk-taking was taken out of the military. We were basically neutered by our own system. That's gone. Yeah. So I don't know. If Joe was in front of me right now, I'd say, dude, maybe you ought to think about how our job is to defend your fat-spreading ass from the bad guys, and we need to do it in such ways that will protect you and the country the way we need to do it to be successful. That's what I tell him.
I think Mika would be nodding along in agreement. Tony, we got to leave it there. Always good to talk to you, Colonel Shaffer.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks, Larry.
7:45 WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the 5. It's amazing how many.
He'd be on every day. He's so fun.
Yeah, he's always a blast. Hey, the people who have retired from the military, enlisted NCOs, commissioned officers, they all have such a different take on what happened yesterday than all of the people who sit behind a desk and read a teleprompter for a living.
Yeah,
and I think that's kind of telling.
Your next $1,000 could be one text away. It's $5K a day on WMAL.
It is 7:51 now, Julie Gunlock, in your nation's capital. Are you having a good morning here, considering I mean, I just want to keep checking in on you because I know how government shutdowns affect you.
Yeah. Everything's fine.
All right. Last night, if there is anything more insufferable than Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert and their martyr tour about how they're losing potentially their $15, $16 million a year jobs for sitting, getting no ratings, and trashing conservative Republican Americans across this country, I don't know what is. It is truly the most insufferable. And Jimmy Kimmel now is doing, I guess, a national tour. He brought his show to Brooklyn, and he booked on his show Stephen Colbert, his competitor over on CBS. So think about this for a second.
Yeah.
Jimmy Kimmel hosting the show has Stephen Colbert as the guest so they could talk about how horrible it is that Colbert lost his show being canceled by CBS and that Jimmy Kimmel was temporarily suspended for 5 days from his show. What great television that must be.
Yeah. We all get to hear about. These are people who make millions and millions of dollars to not be funny. They live unbelievably privileged lives. They don't have a problem in the world, and they have their friends on to complain. Who doesn't want to watch that? Right, Larry?
Right.
I mean,
it's
gross. We think about the days of Carson. We think about the days of even Leno, right? You're tired. It's the end of the day. You're winding down. Maybe you're laying in bed and you put the TV on. You just want to sort of zone out and laugh a little before you go to bed. No, you have to listen to these guys complain about their perfect lives.
Kimmel took a picture with Seth Meyers and Stephen Colbert on the stage with the audience behind them and then posted it to social media with just the words, "Hi, Donald." It's just focus on entertaining an audience, for God's sake. Here's cut 20, Kimmel talking about J.D. Vance.
That these broadcast companies, ABC, NBC, CBS, they enjoy the public airwaves because they serve the public interest. So I actually think that we should be having a conversation about whether these companies are serving the public interest. That's actually totally separate from the Jimmy Kimmel issue because nothing happened to him. He's currently on the air, and to the extent that he's not, it's because advertisers don't like him because his ratings aren't very good.
My ratings aren't very good. Last time I checked, your ratings were somewhere between a hair in your salad and chlamydia. In 3.5 years, I'm not the one who's going to be doing mascara tutorials on YouTube.
Okay, that's fine. Of course, it's based on again, lies. J.D. Vance does not have bad ratings right now. But here's the other thing that's so funny. Jimmy Kimmel's response is, my ratings, what about you? He's the vice president of the United States. You're a late-night talk show host.
Right.
The fact that you immediately say, well, I'll compare my ratings to yours, already shows you that you're sort of missing the point. You're not a politician, Jimmy. You're not running for office.
Well, also, their jobs are wildly different. I mean, J.D. Vance's job is to make tough decisions that might not be politically popular, but he has to do this for the good of the country. The only thing Kimmel has to do is make people laugh about stupid stuff. These are not the same jobs.
Here's the good news for everybody involved. Jimmy Kimmel just predicted that in 3.5 years, J.D. Vance will be reduced to doing mascara how-tos on YouTube because his political career will be over. That's the same Jimmy Kimmel who told us that Donald Trump's political career was over and would never win an election. So if I'm J.D. Vance right now, I'm liking my odds. 754.